A warm welcome to those attending this evening and those watching on the Council's YouTube channel. Details of the business to be considered tonight are on the agenda, copies of which are in the room and can be found available underneath the live broadcast. I think they're yellow now. Yellow resident feedback forms are available in the room. We're not expecting a fire drill or a fire alarm, so if the fire alarm goes off, we're taking it for real and the officers will lead us out to designated meeting points. Can I please ask that those who are in the meeting switch off any mobile devices or at least have them on silent. Before I move into the agenda, I'll do some introductions. I'm Councillor Eddie Lavery, the Cabinet Member for Resident Services, and I'm hearing tonight's petitions. The officer team will move around because they're in two different areas, but I'll start with Debbie Roscoe as a housing manager sitting to my right. Steve Clark from Democratic Services is my clerk, and Ryan Dell is observing. There is only one councillor in the room. Any declarations of interest that are not on the list? No, thank you very much. And this is a meeting in public and is therefore being broadcast. For information of those in the room, those of you sitting kind of in the audience back there cannot currently be seen. Anyone who is at this table or this table can. Okay. Let me just explain how this works so that everyone is clear. Petitioners have 5 minutes to put their petition to me. We will run the timer. It runs green for amber 1, and when it gets to red, you're there. I've got 3 items tonight, so I don't have to be absolutely tight, but I am going to hold it reasonably close to 5 if I can. I'll allow a little finish if it's necessary. Once we've done that, on the first one, there is a usually ward councillor in the room, and I presume you're intending to say something. You get 3 minutes, as you probably know, and again, I ask you to keep to time. I may then ask questions of any of you, and then we'll look at the recommendations from there. So, if you wish to start, if you press the button on the middle, it should light up. It has. Away you go.
Hopefully you can all hear me. I am Alex Stringfellow, and I'm the lead petitioner against the change of use for Useley Court. I attended the consultative meeting on Tuesday the 20th of September, and after hearing the council's plans, it was obvious that the residents needed some help to remain in their homes. So I offered myself. I needed someone with knowledge and experience of the council, so I asked the assistance of Settle, who you all know, the Useley Ward Councillor, and we had our own residents meeting. We're representing 17 of the 25 residents who have expressed a real desire to remain in Useley Court, and a petition was organised. The 17 residents include one who I'm told is only temporary, and a tenant in flat 16 whose son wants him to move, I suspect for the money. His son complained to you, which was all documented and emailed back to me, and accused me of doorstepping and pestering his father to sign. Absolutely not true. I spoke to this resident at our most recent meeting on Saturday, and he confirmed he definitely wants to stay. I believe there are just 3 residents who definitely do want to move. They have their reasons, and of course we respect. Leaving 5 who do not wish to get involved, may be tempted by the home loss payment or inducement, as I prefer to call it, or are waiting to see the outcome. The petition ended up with over 300 signatures within the local area, including the residents and family members. There were people from the local church who were absolutely disgusted at this proposal, signatures from the local doctor's surgery, the Roberts Close scheme opposite, and residents of the 2 roads immediately behind Useley Court, Edgar and Providence, all who willingly signed. Horrified at the potential actions of the council, I will also admit there were some that were concerned having 25 teenagers living in one building on their doorstep. So, if I could just briefly touch on some of the residents, we've got Angel in flat 22. She's lived here for 15 years, is partially sighted. Duncan in flat 18 looks after her and does all her shopping, deals with her mail. What would she do without a neighbour like Duncan? She can trust him and rely on him to help her night and day. Stephen in flat 7 only lived here this time for 6 years, but second time around. He has severe reading and writing disabilities, a form of dyslexia. He feels very safe here and has neighbours to help him with his mail, form filling, etc., and will be really lost without these people. He enjoys coffee mornings in the local church that he can walk to in a few minutes. He actually lived here as a child when his mother was the living warden. Now back here, it's like coming home for him. Duncan in flat 18, who I just mentioned. He's been here for 12 years and makes some really excellent points about this location. His dental surgery is behind Useley Court. The doctor's a short walk. The high street and the shops are at the end of the road, and bus stops in both directions outside the front gate. Where else would I find all this, he asks. Do not want to move, and a perfect location. So, my dear mother-in-law, which is the reason I actually started doing this, in flat 14. She's been here almost 16 years, a council tenant her whole life. She gave up a 3-bedroom house in Thornton Avenue after her husband passed away and ended up here. She will be 97 in July and was in tears over this situation for days. Absolutely distraught. She is so happy here, enjoys her hobbies, regular visitors from a large family. We do her shopping, take her out. And in her own words, not mine, she just wants to be left alone to stay here to the end of her days. Hannah lived here for 15 years, very happy. Tearfully asks me when I see her, are we winning? What is our chances? I'm settled in flat 15's been here over 15 years, horrified and distraught at the thought of having to start all over again. Many others I could mention, and concerns raised about the proposed changes from all the 17, but too many to name or raise in my 5 minutes. For me, and of course many others, this proposal is so disappointing. And we ask, are we not actually better than this? Is Hillingdon Borough not better than this? With our proud senior citizens, some vulnerable, many born here in the UK, they've worked all their lives, they've raised families, paid their taxes. Some are immigrants who came for a better life and have contributed. Many won't thank me for saying it, they're in their twilight years and deserve to be left where they feel safe, happy and content with their lives. I would love to have a conversation with the person who thought up this idea. I cannot believe, apart from the bad publicity it gets, that anyone could actually think it was morally or ethically a good decision. And I ask that this proposal be shut down and find another way for the care leavers, and please just leave them alone. Thank you.
Perhaps if you would, I tell you what I'll do is, if you would stay there,
sure,
because we can it makes it easier that way, because those of you who've been to these things before we televise them will know that we used to be able to do a certain amount of informal exchange. I now can't do that because I have to have it all on camera, so that and all on particularly microphone.
Sure.
So if Councillor Ponge would like to come forward toward Councillor and say your bit, and then if I can keep the two of you there, then I can ask any questions.
Could I just say one last thing, that we'd hoped to have a lot more residents here this evening, but because of the bad weather and there's some sort of flu bug going through Useley Court,
right,
and there's a lot of coughs and colds, and I said to them, stay. You don't need to come.
Thank you, Councillor Lavery and Council officers. I speak here today on behalf of Useley Court elderly residents who have made Useley Court their home, their community and their support network. Residents who have lived in the area most of their lives. Residents who enjoy the ideally located Useley Court, which is close to the doctors, dentists, pharmacists, high street, faith groups and bus routes. Residents who benefit from an open outdoor space, feel safe and comfortable. Residents who have made adjustments to their home to meet their abilities and their medical necessities. Residents who have family nearby to visit and help, which is a godsend, especially since COVID. These are just few of the reasons that residents have given me of why they are heartbroken that they may have to leave Useley Court. And it just serves to show what a great success Useley Court actually is, that it provides this kind of home for these residents. Moving at any time of your life is stressful, but at an elderly age, some of whom are in their 90s and 80s, Mrs Hooker and Mr Sarah, is unthinkable. The thought of moving is creating huge mental stress and anxiety, and the residents are really worried about finding like-for-like accommodation, benefits, care and isolation from family and friends. Of course, there are a few residents that do not want to move for various personal reasons, but the overwhelming majority wish to stay. This is clear even in the consultation feedback that forms part of the reporting on Useley Court and the 336 signatures received on this petition from residents, local neighbours and family members within Hillingdon. As Alex has said, that there were many residents that wanted to attend here today, but because of illness, and some because they're not able to, are not here today to support this petition, but do in spirit and through their signatures. The consideration for Useley Court stems around an oversupply of places for the elderly across Hillingdon. Yet during the consultation, council officers were asked about where these places were and whether they were suitable for the specific needs of the residents, to which there was no knowledgeable answer. This would be great if that was fed back to the residents as well, because they need that for their own security and peace of mind. I was told by residents that the consultation felt like the decision had already been made to move elderly residents and change the occupancy to accommodate care leavers. I sincerely hope that that's not the case. The cash incentive to help with the move may be enticing 2 or 3 residents, but the majority question the costs and wonder who will pay for the retrofitting of accommodation to suit the personal medical needs of these residents. For the majority, they don't want the money, they just don't want to move home. I would ask the council officers and cabinet member to listen to these residents, decide to keep Useley Court as sheltered accommodation for the elderly. Please do not make this consultation a tick box exercise. These elderly residents are not numbers on an Excel spreadsheet, but human beings living the best they can in a community that they have made home, feel safe and feel that they want to live their last days. So please, please, please support this petition.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me say a couple of things at this point. This is a consultation, and it is nothing more than that. The decision will ultimately come through me as the cabinet member and on to cabinet, and it has not yet been made. We do have an oversupply. Yes, that is correct. We do have more accommodation for elderly people than we can currently fill, and that is a fact across the borough. So we do need to look at the way we use all of our stock of houses and how we can make the best use of that with the needs of residents in mind. So no decisions have been made on what ultimately will happen with Useley Court or what it might be used for going forward. Those are all assumptions, and those we're not even at that point yet. We've got to consider the results of this consultation and the implications for it, and then work from there. Let's put that out of consideration now. This is, there's no tick box in this. The officers have gone out to consult, and there we go. Now, interesting enough, the feedback is more mixed than the petition would suggest, which is a kind of interesting conundrum that I've got, because when I read the feedback, it is mixed, but there are positives and negatives in it. Yeah. Now, obviously, the petition is coming across as there are only negatives. So there are positives and negatives I'm reading in the feedback. So we will obviously have to look at that as well when we come to do this. And obviously, I understand it can cause distress, and it may be that if this does ultimately move forward, that the options being offered to people might actually prove attractive to them. At the moment, people are obviously. I can understand the concern against something you don't know what the options are, and we can't put all of that out because until we know whether this is a potentially a go decision, then we need to work out the rest of it.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah. Could I just say that I think some of the positives you're talking about on there is because you ask the residents okay, if we have to move, where would you like to go? So you've probably got 15 or 16 people down there say, oh, well, I'll go to so-and-so, I'll go to so-and-so. But they don't really want to move at all. That's quite a...
as I say...
You can read that any way you want to, actually.
I'm just saying it's not as, you know, it's not as negative as perhaps you have suggested to me. And we'll have to look at both at the end of the day. We'll have to look at those residents who've signed the petition and those residents who've returned the various consultation forms. That's the only way we can take this forward. And I don't think I've got anything more to add.
The other thing I wanted to just say was, has the consideration, well, to be considered, to build something built for these care leavers, because there's 500 and something, I think, if I read the document right, that Debbie brought with her or sent out. You're talking about 25 here, which is such a small percentage. Instead of building a really nice leisure centre in West Drayton, why couldn't that money have been put towards building something else? I know it's a different budget. A lot of usually in West Drayton residents will very much value a very nice leisure centre. Well, nobody ever asked me if I wanted one. Well, a lot of people have been badgering us for a long time. And the other thing I would say is, given that one of the reasons we started to look at the accommodation that we've got is that we have a surplus of elderly accommodation that we can't fill, I'm not really sure I build any more. That doesn't really seem like a great solution.
What Alex was suggesting there was that because on the letter that he had got, there was the idea that this was for care leavers. So therefore, what he's asking is there something else that's been built for care leavers rather than using the elderly accommodation that is now fit for purpose for the elderly to be then demolished to be used for... I didn't necessarily say we were planning on demolishing anything either. Refurbishing it, that's for sure. Well, yeah. But I think if we can go back to the residents, just lastly, I appreciate that the consultation has a bit mixed feedback. I was asked to come in as ward councillor because people felt that consultation had almost unnerved them. And so when I was sitting down with them, there was 17 residents there who actually expressed their desire to stay and their like of the place, and they're wanting to stay in the space where they felt they had a community, their friendships, and we all know how hard it is to start in a new space, in a new place, even at any of our ages. So what I'm saying is that this is elderly people, and we just need to remember that they are people who are vulnerable, have vulnerable needs, and in that move, people are asking for like accommodation because they have retrofitted, they've spent their money retrofitting some of their properties to ensure that they've been able to get their homes, basically. So I think we've got to really think about that. This is not just number, but these are people in homes.
And I fully acknowledge that. So what I will do, the recommendations before me in the report was to meet the list of petitions, which clearly we have done. Officers will bring forward a formal report to me and to Cabinet, having considered this petition together with all of the other feedback we've got, and then that will give us the recommendations as to where we go from here. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank
you for your time. Okay, I have a petition requesting the reversal of the abolition of 30 minutes free car parking for non-residents. Mr. Puar? Mr. Puar in the room?
Okay.
No?
I think in that case, if we don't have the lead petitioner, we're okay to hear the petition without their statement. So, if you wish to go straight to the recommendations, then you can.
Okay. Just checking, I can see two more people at the back. Are you here in respect of the next item? Yeah. Okay. I'm just checking to make sure that I've got this correct. Okay. There's nobody here for item 5, unless there's somebody going to appear through that door in any second now. Oh, hang on. Oh,
they were waiting outside.
Oh, they were outside. Well, I can see two more councillors. They're not. They're right to speak. Is one of you gentlemen the lead petitioner on item 5 of my list, with requesting the abolition of the 30-minute reverse of the abolition of 30 minutes free parking for non-residents? Would you like to have a seat at the table for me, please? Okay. If you wish to press the button on the middle, yeah, and turn it towards you. When you press it, it'll go red, and then you've got 5 minutes.
Oh, starting now?
Well, no, starting from when you start talking. Well, quite nice. But can you press the button first so I can see the microphone light up? Lovely. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Okay. This petition of 1,121 names in the submitted on the behalf of the Hayes Town Business Forum and the Hayes Town Partnership. I'm the chairman of the forum, which is the local chambers of commerce, and we have a total of 71 members, making us one of the biggest business organizations in the borough. Almost all of our members are small independent traders. The forum is a member of Hayes Town Partnership, which is a multi-agency body set up by nearly 20 years ago by the council to promote the regeneration of the Hayes Town. The chair is David Bruff, who sends his apologies for the absence. He's currently in New Zealand. He asked me to inform you the petition has the backing of the whole partnership. The council has done a lot to support Hayes Town Centre in recent years, starting with the shopfront scheme and leading to the 6 million improvement scheme that has transformed the appearance and the image of the town. The introduction of the stop and shop parking scheme was an excellent borough-wide initiative by the council, and the 30 minutes free parking was seen as a vote of confidence in the town centre and shopping parades. However, since it came into being, the challenges facing the local shops have multiplied in the ways that could never have been imagined. Long-term changes in the shopping habits were added by the burden of business rates and increase in running costs. Then came the pandemic, and although the government support measure helped a lot, level of trade had only just begun to recover when businesses were hit with the increase in fuel bills and rampant inflation in the cost of supplies caused by the war in Ukraine and other factors. The government support energy charges were again very welcome, but now is being phased out and the economic recession is being predicted. While all these most recent changes were happening, it came as a total shock to find that the council has abolished the 30 minutes free parking for the residents. I know you have the resident parking, but we are talking about somebody outside from the neighbouring boroughs to come to do the shopping. There was absolutely no notice of no consultation. The report of the officers saying that the proposal was included in the council budget report, which was put out for consultation. But there was a vast report containing hundreds and thousands of details, and was no chance for the business forum or the public to pick up the change to make the objection. Why does it matter to Hayes? There are a number of significant factors. Hayes Town on the edge of Borough, and we rely on getting the shoppers from adjoining areas, including North Holt and South Holt, and probably from Hounslow. Many of shops struggling financially for all the reasons I have mentioned, and they need the customer wherever they come from. Here, Hayes is a poor area, and families have problems paying their bills. This will have an inevitable impact on what they have left to spend in the shops. We understand why the council has the policy of putting the residents first. I'm one of myself and benefit. But if business fail because they have lost an important element of their trade, it will not help residents to have lots of empty shops. A lot of those issues are just as relevant to other town centre in Hillingdon, even though the businesses may not have organised petition. One last point is that the council's stop and shop policy has been copied by other boroughs, including Harrow, who has the policy of 60 minutes free parking. That is what we would like to see in Hayes. Instead of outing support of the town centre, the council should restore the free 30 minutes and build on its past success. Thank you.
You talked about a lot of things in there, many of which are not, I accept they're issues that are relevant to Hayes shopkeepers, but they're not entirely relevant to the council at this stage. But what I didn't hear, and I was hoping I might have heard, was what effect has this had on trade from in Hayes Town? Have we got any evidence
Yes,
at all?
I got a supporting letter. A few of the shopkeepers had written to me, and the Hillingdon Chambers of Commerce has supported it, and they got the letter from them as well.
Right.
So this one I will pass it on to you. And the independent shop, they are also independent shops as small traders. They have lost the trade. One of my shopkeepers, he couldn't attend. He mentioned to me he lost about 40% of his income.
On the basis of many people come to Hayes from outside of Hayes?
Yes.
Outside of Hillingdon, rather?
Outside Hillingdon, yes, because one of the pharmacy shop, they deliver they have the medicine, they can order on, they deliver to the other shopkeepers. Sometimes they come, okay, we pick it up, can we pick it up from Hounslow or from Southall on their way to work, or, sometimes because it's free parking here, but Southall they didn't have any. So this is how they come in to Hayes, and probably we had a lot of varieties of shop than anywhere else. That's where they come in. I mean, some of those shopkeepers, fruit shops, they come from the airport. They live somewhere in the other borough, Harrow or somewhere. And I think my friend, somebody told me that some of the meat shop, they said they used to come in. They don't bother to come because they can't find the parking space for free for early in the morning, sometime 8:30, 9 o'clock. Which should be available because on their work, they want to stop only for 5 minutes, maybe 3 minutes, just to pick it up. Stuff is already ready. The restaurants take away. They order their stuff. They don't want to wait for hours and hours. So it's already there to pick it up. So they don't have they don't have some change for 50p to put it in, or the card. If they're buying something, say like samosa for 75 and to 150, 2 samosa, one pound, they have to spend 50p on that one. Why don't they go somewhere else? So that's what they're losing their trade. They're everywhere because I'm sitting on the high street. My office is on the high street on Cold Harbour Lane. People come to me. They said, okay, first of all, when you say you put a consultation, it was put out. I mean, I didn't know. Nobody else knew. I only came to know by sitting in the office. Mr. Paul, what's happening? What's happening? I said, what's the matter? It's half an hour, we can't park. I said, why not? You press the button. Sometimes you show the button. They said, no, you can't. So then I went in there, couldn't press the button. They said, okay, you put the card. Even myself, it took me 10 minutes to read it, how to do it. So even some of the living people in Hayes, not all of the residents have the cards. They're living in Hayes, but one of the two people are coming today, and they want to how to apply for the business first card. They live in Hayes. So what they do?
Apply for a Hillingdon first card, I would suggest.
They
live in Hayes.
They will get it. Our aim is to get all from other boroughs to let them come into Hillingdon, not only Hayes, anywhere in Hillingdon. But because I represent the Hayes Town Centre, so that's why I'm talking more. I know what's happening in Hayes Town.
No, that's fine. That's entirely fine. There are a couple of ward councillors in the room now.
Can I add one more?
You're stretching my generosity, but go on.
Okay. I know when you do something free or you want to change something in parking, you always put something on the lamppost, which I used to read it, but nothing was mentioned, nothing was put on display, anything anywhere in the town centre. Sometimes you consult with the business form and we take the papers to the shopkeeper and we distribute to the public, look, this is what's happening, and nothing has happened.
Well, this... I'll cover that point in a moment, because you have had your say now. This petition is, in the way it's framed, although it has come from Hayes, and I acknowledge that, it does relate to all wards. Now, under council rules, of course, where I have an all wards item, there are no ward councillors to speak. I have a little discretion that I can use. On the basis that you are from Hayes, and this was actually generated by the Hayes Town Forum and so forth. Councillor Curling is here and is a Hayes councillor, so I will allow that latitude.
You want to turn it off?
He's got a speech, I'm sure.
Oh.
Just in case.
Oh, dear. Oh,
God, static. No, I don't have a prepared speech, but but I just to sort of concentrate on Hayes, as you say, it is a borough-wide issue, but a lot of the issues within Hayes, I think, are replicated in other areas. But specifically in Hayes, as Mr. Poor has already said, there's lots of shops and traders in Hayes that are quite unique in what they do. Some are specialist sort of Asian food stores that people come from quite a distance to visit. And the Stop and Shop scheme, when it was first introduced, was not only to benefit residents, but also to ensure that some of our town centres and shopping parades were, sort of more sustainable and had a lot of extra trade, people passing by, stop off, buy a bottle of milk or whatever. And it has hit the town centre quite hard. As a ward councillor, a lot of traders have sort of said to me that it's hit them hard. I haven't got any concrete evidence. Just to reiterate what Mr. Poor was saying, it has led to quite a lot of trade being missed. Also, not every resident carries their Hillingdon First card with them. I mean, I do, it's in my wallet, but not everybody does that. And of course, most of the traders who are losing out are indeed residents themselves. So, so I think that's about all I've got to add, really. Thank you.
Okay, this was, as has rightly been said, part of the budget consultation process last year, and indeed, as Councillor Curling will be aware, was approved by full council, and in fact, actually, no questions were raised in the budget setting meeting regarding this item, so it did go through. Now, in terms of where we go from here, constitutionally, I can't change this decision. Only the cabinet can change the fees and charges decision, and ultimately, fees and charges are actually, or the annual round is agreed by the full council as part of the budget setting process. So what I will do with this, and the timing is kind of fortunate and works for us. The 2023-4 budget is currently out to consultation, and therefore this petition will be taken into account when we are considering the budget responses we receive and how that consultation then shapes up into the final proposals that will appear first at the February Cabinet and then obviously at the February Council meeting, where they will be then voted on by the full Council. Okay, so I couldn't change it tonight even if I wanted to, because but I've heard what you've said, and my officer team are busily making notes for me, which is why I don't have to do it. But we will add this to the consultation responses we receive, and then consider it in the light of the whole budget setting round. Because that's all I can I can agree to do. But we will consider this when we're considering everything else. But thank you for your time. Not with me, because I will lose it. I'll add it to another pile of paper I've got. Okay. I'm going to move to the final item of tonight, which is another parking one. A petition requesting a review of the increased parking charge in high streets and council car parks. Now, I'm left with one person in the room, so it must be you. Would you like to come and take a seat for me? You know the format by now, because you've seen it done twice before. Away you go.
Thank you very much for having me today. My name is Hov. I'm a local business owner, and dare I say entrepreneur, trying to build a business, and I'm here on behalf of all the independent business owners and most of the residents we've spoken to, and our customers as well, regarding the parking charges. Pretty much similar kind of petition to the previous item on the agenda. Essentially, we feel that we've all been let down by the decision to abolish the free parking for the non-residents, and to more than double the charges for everything else. More than 100% increase on parking charges is plenty enough to discourage residents and non-residents alike to not visit Hillingdon when local boroughs and surrounding areas have offerings not too dissimilar. We like to think we're all unique and doing our own thing, but convenience is a huge factor when shopping at convenience stores. For coffee, I run a coffee shop, and one of the biggest decisions and one of the biggest factors for sales is convenience. Parking is a huge factor for that. We've noticed our business is down by about 20%. Try to prove that that's because of parking in a climate like this, and it's quite difficult to do. We can only ask customers, those that are still coming in, and obviously use the powers of social media to connect with customers and things like petitions to find out what they're thinking and what their reasoning is for not wanting to shop locally anymore. I did a poll yesterday where around about 250 people took part, and 98%, that's a huge number, disagreed with the decision made by Hillingdon Council regarding these parking regarding the parking charges. For places like Eastcote, where my business is, shoppers simply need to travel just another 3 minutes down the road to Pinner, which is in the Borough of Harrow, where there's an hour free parking. You don't need a Hillingdon card, you don't need a Harrow card, or whatever it may be. And while I appreciate the gesture of, yes, everybody should have a Hillingdon card, it's not convenient to use it. You have to hold it against the machine for about 10 to 12 seconds. It's raining, you pull it away too soon, it cancels. What if you don't have it with you? What if you have friends visiting from out of town who are also parking? Why should they have to pay more than twice what you're paying to go to the exact same coffee shop, to eat at the exact same restaurant? Doesn't make sense. If that's how we're alienating people from visiting local businesses, we're going the right way about doing it. Places like Brent Cross, I've used this as an example quite a few times. Brent Cross is not a cheap shopping centre. The shops that they have there are relatively higher end compared to some of the surrounding areas, and yet it's always packed. People always go on about the free parking, and when it comes to decision making about where to go shopping, you're going to go to somewhere like Brent Cross because of that. Now granted, lots of the local places aren't as big as Brent Cross. It's a huge factor that we have to consider. With things like the rising costs, energy crisis, obviously people trying to spend less and save more, We ultimately we just feel that we're let down by the council in the decision to almost shun people that don't live in the council in the borough by what they've done. For myself, I'm proud to say that I'm building a business that is recognised within the borough. I'd like to think that we're making a bigger impact than that, and a lot of our customers who have, let's say, moved away in the 3-4 years that we've been open, 3 years that we've been open, so many of them used to come back when they were visiting parents, visiting family, and now they don't because they can't park. It's as simple as that. I'll finish off with a couple of quotes that people have sent me, residents, and these aren't business owners, these are residents that wanted to visit places like mine, but no longer do so. Quote, I live in Harrow and it's so expensive for me to come to Eastcote or Ruislip now. Harrow is still free for 60 minutes. Surely Hillingdon want people from other boroughs to come and visit and support their local businesses. The 30 minutes free should be for everyone. I lived in Ruislip for over 30 years now, and now I live in South Harrow. Still local, and I'd still like to support the area, but the parking charges sadden me, as I feel I can't support a community I was part of for such a long time. I feel pushed out of the community that I grew up in. I appreciate I'm out of time. Thank you very much for hearing me out.
I mean, obviously you've heard quite a bit of what I had to say in response to the last petition.
It seems futile.
No.
But I appreciate your position.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am bound by the Council Constitution. We will consider this in conjunction with the responses to budget consultation and the overall council budget. And that's the only way I can do it, because obviously all fees and charges have to be looked at in the round, and that is as much as I can do. But we will consider it. There were one or two other suggestions looking at recommendations before me. Interestingly, we've done a little bit of research on the Harrow scheme, and it's not quite as presented.
Okay.
Or at least from what we can find at this time, it appears to apply to on-street parking only.
Not the car parks.
Not the car parks.
Okay.
Well, it's certain. I will tell you that at least up until a week ago, it definitely doesn't apply to the car parks, because I was in a car park in Pinner a week ago, and it definitely wanted money off me.
Okay.
And I would have got away with, because I only wanted to be there for 10 minutes. So, but I would definitely have
for a
taken
quick convenience stop, if I may ask. For a quick convenience stop. One where you might not have had a card on you, but
no, I would have had a card on, because I carry such things, you might guess. So yeah, it appears that it is, and won't apply. It doesn't appear as if it applies to their pay by phone option either, as far as we can determine at this stage. So there are nuances in it, although I accept that there is some 60 minutes available. We and the other element from our perspective is also in terms of our residents that move around, they can get more than one free 30 minutes in a day, whereas as far as, again, we understand the Harrow scheme, you will only get 160.
Yeah.
So that, again, is there are swings and roundabouts to all of these things. I note the suggestion about vehicle registration numbers. That's something I have got the parking team looking at currently, but we've got to get all these things to work together.
Is there any feedback on that, or is that too early to tell?
It's too early to tell.
Okay.
I know it is done in other places.
Yeah.
Part of the issue we have is obviously we've got whatever it works has got to work with the Hillingdon First card. So you've got various sets of software you've got to get to work together, and that's always the issue. And then also the other consideration that I will have if I go down this road is if I've got, people got to show their Hillingdon First card, they've then got to put a registration number in, they've then got to show a credit card. I'm starting to put a lot of steps into a process. So again,
that used to be just to turn up and press the green button.
Well, possibly, but it was always supposed to be show your card, but then we won't go there. But yes, so we will have to look at it in the round, but it is always a question. The first question, the technical question, which is what I have asked the team to look at for me, is how it might work, because what we need to. Sometimes with these things, the more steps you ask the machine to do for you, the more problems you potentially get. So we just need to make sure that if we go down that road, it actually gives us a benefit.
Sure.
It wouldn't necessarily benefit from what you're looking for. Actually, the benefits may be in other directions,
Yeah.
like people sharing tickets.
From a convenience perspective,
It may not be. On a wet morning, trying to put your registration number isn't always the most fun thing
if you
to
remember it as well. Yeah.
and assuming you can remember it, yes. Obviously, this decision was approved by Council in February 22. The outcome of tonight will form part. We are currently in the budget setting round. Consultation budget's out at the moment. We are responses due back by the end of this month, from my memory, and then we've got a short period of time to consider what we put in our final budget before we release that in February. So this and the petition that I just heard before it will actually form part of the feedback. We'll include them as part of the feedback into that process, because that's the only way we could change anything anyway.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time.
That's all right. Thank you.
Thank you. And that, for those watching online, concludes tonight's petition hearing. If we can cut the feed.